Hello and Happy New Year! I'm absolutely determined this year that I'm going to get more tutorials done. And I started a new memory book the other day, and I thought I'm going to try and incorporate some new pages and some new ideas. So I thought today I would share with you an idea that I've been working on. I've been watching a lot of Paul Ford, and he does some brilliant things. And what I wanted to do was take some of his ideas and make them my own and incorporate them in different ways. So I want to show you something that I am working on at the moment. So I'm going to bring you down and show you what I've been doing. So if I bring you down, okay. So I've just started a new 8x8 book. And because it is still winter, I'm going to continue to use the Let's Get Cozy Graphic 45 papers. And I've done my first page, and I always do a pocket page for my first page. And this is a double pocket, so there's one there and there's one there. And then what I've done is I've done a belly band, and I've done a little slot in there so that it doesn't fall through. It gets caught in the little slot. And the page we're going to do today has this design but without the belly band as its main component. So I start with my 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So my outside book is 8x8. My inside pages are 7 3/4 by 7 3/4, and I have a piece of decorative paper which is 7.5 by 7.5. I take 1.5 inches off the top, and I'm just going to glue that onto here. Now you've seen me make this part of the page before, so I'm going to do this pocket base page quite quickly. So I'm going to put that on the top like that, so that sticks down. And then my next piece, making sure it is the next piece, is now 7.5 by 3. So I've cut the 6 inches that is left into 2 pieces at 3 inches. And then I'm going to mount that on 7 3/4 by 3 1/4. So 7.5 by 3, 7 3/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm just going to stick that one onto there like that. So I hope everyone had a nice Christmas. We were doing really well, and then unfortunately the family started to drop with this horrible flu cough thing throughout Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then they all went home and they left me the additional present of this horrible cough. So last week was spent in bed. Right, so that's going to go onto there. Just matching up your pattern. I always find if I'm using wet glue, I can just lift it up off the bench and it just allows me that little bit of wriggle time. And while I was talking to you, what I should have said is I've gone round those 3 edges, not the middle, because I want to actually use it as a pocket. And then because I always want to have as much space to put photographs as I can find, what I've done here is I've used the Cool Cats strip die, and I have actually cut it. I've cut that out, and I'm going to keep the little piece, this little tiny piece, to put back in. So I've got a piece with a hole in it. So I'm going to stick this onto this card, but slightly differently. So I'm going to go all the way around the edge The bottom edge I'm going to try and keep quite tight. Remember, I never go right to the edge because you don't want it to splurge out. I'm then going to do a little line that goes from those two slits, making sure I'm the right way up. I'm going to go around the top of that slot like that. Lots of glue on the top, glue down the side of the slit, but that bit I don't glue because obviously if I glue that, it's not going to work as a slot. So I'm just going to put that onto there like that. So I haven't put a belly band on this because I don't actually want a lot of bulk to this, and you'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to use my fine nib. So this is a very, very fine nib that Tonic Studios now do that attaches to your deluxe glue. This is a large one, but it fits just as well to the small one. So I'm just going to put a little tiny strip of glue along there, and that is really useful for that. And then I'm just going to place that back in, and once I've placed it back in, before I press it down, I'm just going to use my pokey tool just to lift that up all the way, so that when I press it down, I know I'm not sticking it to the bottom. And then I can stick it down. And that will now work as another flap for another photo. And then again, a bit of glue around those three. I found these slot dies really, really useful for just creating a little extra slot. And as I say, on that page I did yesterday, having that extra slot underneath, I'm not quite straight there, underneath the belly band just stopped the photo card from falling out. So that's the basis of this page. So this that's the one. This one with the little nozzle has a little pin in the nib, so you can just put the pin back in. If your eyesight's as poor as mine, it's a bit of a trouble to do, but you can put the pin back in. Okay, so now we come to the other part of this. And what I've done is I've created two flaps. Now, this one I've actually finished and made. So the flap will go like that. And then when you open it up, you've got an additional flap that goes like that. And there's going to be one of those either side. Now, when I was making this up this morning, in my head, I was going to use photo corners. But in my rush to get this side finished before I did the video, I forgot. So what I've done is I've put, again, I've used Cool Cats, but I've used their little photo frames. And I think it's just as nice. They do an internal one so that you could put pattern paper on it, but I didn't want to do that because I think it would look too busy. And also it just demonstrates where you can put your photographs. So to make these, to make the actual flaps, I wanted it so that it will match and meet in the middle. So I needed this to be 7 3/4 by 7 3/4, and then I needed an extra 1/2 inch on either side to create the 1/2 inch flaps. So the flaps themselves are 4 3/8 each. So that's 7 3/4 plus another 1/2 inch. And then they're scored at 1/2 inch. And we have 2 of those. So I'll put the one that I've done to one side. The papers are then, find the right papers, here we go. The papers are then 3 5/8. Those are the ones I want. 3 5/8 by 7 1/2. and you will need 4 of those, so 2 for that side and 2 for that side. And what I've done is I've used one piece of paper, but I've got one side where I'm going to use that and one side where I'm going to use that. So remembering which way up I'm going, so that one's that side, so this one is this side, sorry, no, yes, that one is that side, so this is this side. So, and they don't quite meet in the middle, but never mind, can't have everything. So I'm going to pop that onto there like that. Okay, so I hadn't done one of these in advance. I've literally just had this design in my head and I thought I'd have a go with you. So that's going to go onto there. And you know, you could do different things with this flap. As I say, originally my idea had been to put photo slots, circle photo slots, but I got, as I say, carried away and did it too quickly. So I'm going to stick one of these in the middle like that. Now, the important thing is not to do the other side yet. So I'm going to stick that onto there. So we don't do the other side yet, but I did this side so that I know which way up I am going, because I'm really bad at keeping things to the right way up. So now I'm going to turn it over, and this is the inside. And here is where I want this other flap. And this is 7 3/4 by 3 3/4. So 7 3/4 by 3 3/4. So if it was flat, it would be exactly the same length. But I don't want it exactly the same length because I want to put a little tab on it. And I also want a flap. So I've scored and folded at 1/2 inch. And I'm going to stick that flap to the top here. So I'm going to try and level it up with the top. Lift it up so that I can use my fingers to feel that it's level. There we go. And then I'm just going to press that down. Give that a good bit of welly. What you can also see is that I've rounded the corners. I've used my corner rounder just to round those corners. And now I'm going to decorate that. The reason you don't decorate the inside bit first is because you've got a little bit of a flap there. So at this point you could actually decorate your inside. So we may as well do that next. So using the reverse, which I like the reverse as well. I think it's really nice. I'm just going to go round here. And stick that one in like that. Make sure it's stuck down. You can spend more time making sure it's firmly stuck down. And then if I look at my other flap, you can see the outside one is these little rabbity hairy things. I don't know whether they're rabbits or hares. So I'm going to put that on there. So again, I've used both sides of pieces so that it looks different, but I've only actually used one piece. So I go there, like that. Lift it up so that I can see. This is the only trouble when you've got blue on blue. You just need to lift it up to make sure it's central. And then we'll put, right way up, we'll put a tab on there. My apologies, just let me turn that off. Seems to be my day for rogue calls today. Right, let me just stick that onto there and put those two level. I could measure this, but as long as I'm fairly happy that they're level, ish. Just run that along there. Make sure they're straight. That needs to come up very, very slightly, but only slightly. I'm happy with that. Straighten it slightly as well. Oh, it is straight. I can see it straight with that line. And I'm also going to put this little tab. Now this is a Corkat's tab die. So the die comes as one double piece and then you cut the little pieces to go on that. So, and put glue all over the back of those. And then, oh no, I want to do that other piece first. My apologies for that. My apologies, I'll just put that to one side. Forgot the underside. So the underside, we're using the flower. And again, you can see I've rounded those corners. So I pop that on there. When you are prepping for this, remember that the underside of the flap needs to be the other way up. If you've got a pattern that has a wrong and a right, so just stick that on. And now I can stick that on. And again, I would usually use my center tool to center it up. I'm pretty good at eyeballing these days. So now we need one of these on the inside here, like this. And I can feel this one under here that will help me to line it up with the one underneath. So I can feel that that's lined up pretty well with the one underneath. Obviously it isn't vitally important, but it's quite nice to know it's lined up. And then the one here, so again I'm going to try and line it up as best I can with that one. Probably better to try and line it up with the one underneath. So let's put some glue on there. Feel is much better than eye, isn't it? So I can feel roughly where that is. So I can feel I'm going into roughly the same spot. And then there are my two flaps complete. Now you could put a magnet in there and a magnet on your flap. I personally don't like using magnets unless I feel I absolutely have to. So now I'm going to put some glue onto there. Now if you wanted to do something a bit bulkier with your back page, I would just do a little double crease so that you've got a little tiny gusset which will allow you. So I just need to make sure that folds before I do any pressing down. And then because that is quite bulky, you will need to do a fair amount of pressing down. Okay, because it will just take a minute to catch. That's the bulkiest bit. It's just taking a minute to catch. Okay, and then we're going to do the same on this side. So we're going to put a bit of glue on there. And I think if I'd gone any bulkier, I would certainly have done a small gusset, even if it was just a couple of millimeters. So before I seal that down, I just want to make sure it actually folds over. So I'm going to do the same thing again. And just burnish that down and into place. You can see the bulkier bits in the middle there. So just give that a really good rub down. Now again, you could use magnets to hold all that into place. I prefer to always use a different type of fastening, and my most favourite fastening is ribbon. So I'm going to get a piece of sticky tape across the back there and take that off like that. And then I'm going to get my blue ribbon, which is here, and making sure I've got enough to tie. I think I've overdone the tying amount. I always do. I'm going to just take that off there, turn that around, and you can finish off your edges of your ribbon with little circles to tie it all into place and just neaten it up. But for now I'm just going to do that and that. And then that is your next page all ready to go in your album. And as I say, you can do whatever you want with the flaps, but if you make it any bulkier than it is now, then just put a little gusset in. I can see lots of glue, but I can get in with my glue rubber when it's dry. Okay, I really hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please do a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, that would be great too. Okay, thank you very much.